Welcome home, brave heroes. I'm Ash, this is HeroQuest, and it's time for another Bwodecast podcast episode. This will be minimal on the graphics. I'll go ahead and turn on the face cam and the screen capture just to give you some visual should you choose to look. But this will be otherwise best enjoyed while commuting to or from work. Some of you like to listen while painting or creating magic card decks, and some of you like to listen while working. Which, while that's flattering and great, do be safe. If you are in a warehouse, make sure you leave an earbud out or something so that you can hear approaching forklift traffic or foot traffic. I'm a forklift driver, so I actually take that sort of thing kind of seriously. Also a first aid provider, former first aid provider, so I know this sort of thing can get dangerous and at times bloody. Anyways, a question that I posed in the Discord server was, if you could see a crossover, whether it's realistic or not, or from Hasbro or any other company, between HeroQuest and something else, what would the something else be? Now, I asked this in the Discord server, and I would like to incentivize people to join the Discord server. Joining it's free. You don't need a special role. You don't need any sort of membership, any sort of fee paid. You don't have to be a patron, anything like that. And the Bwodecast Q&A channel is freely accessible to all. If you do join the server and you decide to just lurk and read everything rather than participate, that's totally fine as well. But this particular question I did not ask in my previous video, and I didn't ask it in the YouTube post area where I could have created a post and asked it just the same. I will do that with some questions, but with others, I will absolutely try to get people to join the active Discord community, or at least sometimes active, in an effort to make it more active, more community-like. But I will think on a question definitely to ask in the YouTube area so that people who do not wish to join Discord for whatever reason can still participate. Won't be every episode, and I don't actually have one lined up for this next one because I actually have an interview that I'm planning. So the topic will be later. It will be much later now. But I wanted to see what people thought about crossovers. I wanted to hear what people would consider to be good crossovers between HeroQuest and whatever other IP might come to mind, whether it was Hasbro, one of Hasbro's other numerous IPs, one of the IPs from one of their child companies, subsidiaries, or something just completely off the wall that you know would never happen, but you'd still like to see it because you think it fits. And so, moving on to the responses, I did make some suggestions. I said, what about the other Hasbro entities? What about G.I. Joe? What about Power Rangers? What about Transformers? These aren't things that I necessarily want to see, mind you. I don't want to see things go the route of, I exist just for merch. And I don't want to see things go the route of, will this print money? And I know that that's the way a lot of things go right now. It's baffling how people at the top of the corporate chain are so out of touch that they think we need to see some of the stuff that we are seeing right now. There are some crossovers I wouldn't mind. One of the suggestions that I have is Magic the Gathering. I could see a Magic the Gathering crossover on the Magic side, not necessarily because Wizards of the Coast and Avalon Hill are owned by the same company. I don't think Hasbro has the authority to say, hey, you two, do this. I don't think it's that kind of relationship at all. But I think that it would work well on the Magic the Gathering side because they could come up with like 4 heroes with names to represent the heroes that are in the core game of HeroQuest. And they could come up with, of course, a design for Zargon, and they could leave it vague, or they could have it to where it's just like a gloved hand clenched in a fist, sort of like Dr. Mad from Inspector Gadget, something like that. And we're seeing it from the perspective of Zargon clenching his or her fist or their fist at the heroes. And these sort of commander cards could be used. I don't play a lot of Magic the Gathering. I've really just played, I think, 3 or 4 games in my entire life, and I have a ton of Magic cards. One of these days, let me know if you're interested. Maybe I can do a stream where I do nothing but go through all of my Magic cards. That sort of thing has to be so boring for so many people, but I bet that it would be fun for some of you. Maybe you could help me build a deck. But going off on a tangent, those were some of the suggestions I had. I also suggested maybe Marvel, Fantastic Four. That might truly work. Think about that. With Doctor Doom as Zargon, comic book nerds out there know Doctor Doom he's a big player. It would kind of make sense to have him as a Zargon because he would just feel so out of reach, so unbeatable. And then your Fantastic Four fit perfectly into the 4 heroes that would tackle every quote-unquote dungeon in that context. They would have very different roles. And I think that would just be a lot of fun to design. I would love to design something like that or help out with that. Spider-Man, X-Men. X-Men would be a bit tricky. You'd have way more than 4 mutants to pick from, so you'd want to offer a wide variety and then let people kind of figure out what their roles are once they have everybody in. My Little Pony, there's been a running joke about a HeroQuest and My Little Pony crossover because there is a misnamed Amazon, I think it is .com, listing for a HeroQuest game. And for some reason, My Little Pony is part of the title, but it's a third-party seller, I believe. And so it's not something that Amazon would necessarily take responsibility for. They just have to regulate it like any third-party seller post. But it looks like somebody had a listing for My Little Pony, decided to sell HeroQuest using that listing as a template, and forgot to take My Little Pony out of the title. It's wild. But it's just HeroQuest. I mean, it's just the base game of HeroQuest, I think. Probably not even worth checking out, but definitely amusing if you do see it. Star Wars could work. We turn it into a space opera. Star Trek, that could work. Star Trek has a lot of characters, a lot of universes to choose from. Really more, it's like one universe, one timeline. So you have a lot of different eras to choose from, more like. Ninja Turtles is another good one that I really liked. And I came up with Adventure Time. I think Adventure Time would work really, really well in the context of HeroQuest because Adventure Time characters can do anything. They can absolutely be any role. Just to think on that one as a huge Adventure Time fan, I would have like Finn and Jake, obviously, and I would put in Princess Bubblegum and probably Marceline, and I would probably have, I guess I'd have the Ice King or the Lich be Zargon. One of those two. I don't know which one of the two it would be. You could have the Ice King as one of the hero characters. Really, the Ice King could be the wizard just as easily as anybody else. I mean, after all, he was like a primary antagonist, but he wasn't a bad guy, you know? Just because you are a bad guy doesn't mean you are a bad guy. And I would have, your 4 playable characters be able to tackle all of these different possible dungeons that you could create based on the world of Ooh. I think that would be that's full of potential right there. That is absolutely chock full of potential. All of these are. But anyways, the question I put out there, Jace answered with Legend of Zelda being his top choice. I could kind of see it. I could definitely see solo adventures set up. I like Legend of Zelda as a solo adventure, and I'm not hijacking Jace's suggestion. As it stands, it's probably fantastic as is. It would be doable. You would definitely be able to design a HeroQuest that is crossed over with Legend of Zelda. You know who your 4 heroes could be. It would depend maybe on the universe that you're picking. But, obviously Link. You could have like a 4 Swords adventure type experience where all 4 of the characters are Link. They're just different versions of Link. You could have one where the 4 characters are from a specific universe. So like Wind Waker, and then you could have Link, you could have Tetra, and then you could have maybe 2 of Tetra's pirate crew. Or you could have Zelda, and then one of the other, maybe Link's sister, something like that. Something like that might work well. And there are a ton of other Legend of Zelda games where you could take different characters and make them playable. So you could have like Link and Midna, Tingle, Sheik, Impa. Impa's a good one. I would love to have Impa as a playable character. Basically all of the characters that were playable in Hyrule Warriors. Beastmaster. Beastmaster, that's not a bad one. And actually, that reminds me, I need to watch that movie. Shar and I were on a classic fantasy movie kick for a minute there, and we got all of the Conans watched and out of the way. I need to watch Beastmaster now. I'm embracing the cheese. For Castlevania, that would work beautifully. That would work fantastically with Zargon being Dracula and Castlevania being composed of so many huge different wings and sections, and each section could be presented as a quest. You could easily have a Castlevania crossover. You could easily have 1 or 2 Belmonts and 1 or 2 of the other family members and Alucard all coming together as the 4 heroes to tackle each dungeon. That would actually be very interesting and fun to me. Personally, I would like to play that. I know we have Blood Quest for the Blood is Life already out there in print, and that does draw on Castlevania stuff. It has some blatant references to the Belmonts. But a true Castlevania-only crossover, that would be really cool. Another suggestion he had, easy to port into X-Men as a Danger Room scenario, or shoehorn in another multiverse. I wouldn't shoehorn in any multiverses, and I could see it being actual X-Men scenarios rather than a Danger Room situation. It could just be that you have 4 mutants to send in, and they've got to accomplish this objective. They got to defeat all of the Sentinels. They've got to hunt down Sabretooth and capture him. They got to save a hostage. HQ and everything else is already possible to be a Lost Night world in 40K, or an undiscovered planet in Star Wars or Star Trek or other sci-fi. Now, I don't play 40K, so I'm not sure what Lost Night worlds are. You can go ahead and laugh at my ignorance. I'm purposefully not getting into 40K because it's a money sink. And I know if I do, I know myself, I'm a completionist, and I'm somebody who will buy more than is necessary to play a core experience, so I don't want to get into that. Dark Tower. And Leorlek responded with, the problem with Dark Tower is that players will skin you alive when they make it to the end of Quest 14 and you tell them the next quest is the trial. Stephen King. We have a member, Sergeant House. I think TMNT would go great with HQ. We have 4 turtles that can do different abilities and stats. You have the foot soldiers in different colors to represent different level stats. This is true. He came up with some examples. Purple foot soldiers are goblin. That's your most common type of foot soldier. Blue foot soldiers are orcs. Mousers can be like the ice gremlins. I love that because the Mousers are, first of all, one of my favorite enemies from Ninja Turtles in general. I just love the Mousers design. I always had. And I love the size of them. Such a diminutive, cute size. And they can steal your stuff. They would work perfectly as ice gremlins. The mutants can be mini bosses until you reach the main boss, Shredder. That's our Zargon. Then you can add cards for different weapons, potions, pizza health, etc. So there's other mobs too. We've got General Trag, who is of course the leader of the Rock Soldiers. So we could absolutely have Rock Soldiers. We could have the Triceratons. We could have more Utrom brain monsters like Krang wearing different exoskeleton android suits coming through the corridors to hunt the turtles down. We could have Foot Clan that aren't necessarily robots. I know some of them are robots and some of them are just like the lowest level humans. Am I thinking of the right? They might always be robots. The ones that aren't robots, the Purple Dragons? The Purple Dragons could be good low-level characters, and that could really be a good enemy setting for a lot of the quests that there could be for this as well. I love the TMNT idea a lot. I think TMNT works perfectly. And I wasn't alone in thinking this at all. Sergeant House, who is also known as Jay Blackstone, went ahead and made character cards for our turtles. Here is an interpretation of Leonardo with 2 attack dice, 2 defend dice, 7 body, and 3 mind. He's got a short sword that he starts with. We go on to Donatello. Love that picture of Donatello. Donatello's my favorite turtle. He has 1 attack dice. His starting weapon's a bow staff, so he'll be able to attack diagonally. 2 defend dice, 4 body, and 6 mind. Then we go on to Mikey. This version of Mikey is 2 attack, 2 defend, 6 body, 4 mind, and has a nunchaku for the starting weapon, of course. I don't know what would be so special about that weapon, actually, in the HeroQuest context. Raphael has 3 attack dice. He's a beefy boy. 2 defend dice, 8 body, and 2 mind, with his starting weapon, the Sai. So I actually think that works out so good. Blackstone went ahead and made Foot Clan. Here's the Foot Clan Enforcer. The Mouser. Love that. 1 attack, 1 defend, 1 body. It makes sense. It makes sense. The Foot Clan Fighter. The Foot Clan Ranger. The Foot Clan Soldier. Okay. Very good. Very good. All this worthy of Bwodecast for sure. And we do have a couple of boss characters as well. Here's Bebop. Movement squares 10, attack dice 3, defend dice 2, body points 6, mind points 1, of course, and Rocksteady, both from the 1980s cartoon. 8 movement squares, 3 attack dice, 4 defend dice, 6 body points, 1 mind. Love it. They usually show up in almost every interpretation of Turtles, but those images specifically are ones that I believe would be from the 80s cartoon, or at least they're based on the 80s cartoon designs. All of the interpretations of the different Turtles characters do have subtle differences with each new version that comes out. A lot of them are throwbacks. Lego Ink Vial, Geek Gone Giddy, mentioned crossing HeroQuest over with Lost Valley of the Dinosaurs and Escape from Atlantis. He has experience doing this because he's put the HeroQuest mechanics and miniatures in with Lost Valley of the Dinosaurs and Escape from Atlantis, which are board games, and says he would enjoy incorporating the Amazing Labyrinth, which I can definitely see that being done. And actually, Flores of HeroQuest fame is working on the Minotaur's Labyrinth, which has its inspiration from both the Amazing Labyrinth and HeroQuest. This is a legitimate board game that is being developed. So don't worry, I'm going to cover it. I'm going to cover everything about it, as much of it as I can, as soon as I can, whenever information is available for me to cover. Mysteries of Old Peking, with a nod to the upcoming Monk Hero release, and The Thing. And we did talk a little bit about The Thing and how the Thing scenario might play out. And for those of you unfamiliar, The Thing is a movie. I believe it came out in the 90s and has been redone at least once since. And I believe it's an older property than that. I think it's just an old book. It might have come out quite a bit earlier than the 80s. So the 80s movie would be based on that. But I could be wrong. I don't want to Google it right here and destroy my legitimacy. I'd rather just go ahead and admit my ignorance. But The Thing is about a creature that is discovered. And I think it's discovered by a group of researchers. And they're in the Arctic, I believe. And it's able to assume any form, including the form of those victims that it takes. And I think it has access to their knowledge and their memories. It can essentially become that person. So they find that, there's a murdered person on the crew. Who could have done it? Well, they're interacting with somebody, and then they find that person's body, and they come to realize what's going on, that this alien entity is assuming the forms of others. And I thought it'd be really cool if a scenario in HeroQuest could play out such that you have this sort of mimic-like entity that is assuming the form of your hero. And I think it'd be really cool if a scenario in HeroQuest could play out such that you have this sort of mimic-like entity that is assuming the form of your hero. And I think it'd be really cool if a scenario in HeroQuest could play out such that you have this sort of mimic-like entity that is assuming the form of your hero. And so all of the heroes perhaps play as normal in this scenario until they get to a certain point. And once they get to this point, then you have a reveal where one of the heroes is actually the bad guy, the thing. And to make it fair for the person playing the hero, you basically have them restart the scenario from a different room where they are, quote, actually being held because they're still alive. And then their character gets replaced by a chaos or dread representation of their character. And this character is controlled by Zargon and has all the stats and abilities and equipment of that hero. This is something I might actually build out and make into a quest for you guys if you're interested in seeing it. But I'm sure you can also do the same thing if you have experience with the thing, which I don't, and can still think of ways to make this work. And at that point, the heroes know that this hero is bad. They can fight them, they can kill them, but this is at no personal risk to the player who is playing that hero, because their hero still has all their equipment and gold and possessions and everything, and they're just locked up in a cell somewhere else on the board. Or their stuff is, outside of the cell or in the next cell or whatever makes more sense mechanically for your players. But at that point, they can escape their cell. They just woke up, you could say. And that's how you can do that. That's how you would be able to do a situation like that and make it fair and still fun for everybody. But it would be really cool because all of your heroes will start out being suspicious of who will be revealed as the thing. And that can be something that either Zargon knows at the beginning or something that can be revealed through a dice roll in front of everybody. And while your heroes are going through the dungeon, it's like, do we want to gear up? Do we want to equip this new armor and stuff that we just found, or this new crossbow or this new weapon? Because if I end up being the thing, that's going to be problematic for you guys. It really puts a different sort of tense dynamic on the completion of the quest. Dan the Colombian suggested an HQ crossover with Warhammer 40k or the Old World or Age of Sigmar, where the franchise belongs. And I thought that was a pretty spicy take, but I really did like it. And then Dan showed me that Warhammer, the Old World, is a thing being worked on by Games Workshop. So Games Workshop is legitimately actually developing Warhammer, the Old World, and this will be a basic reboot of Warhammer Fantasy Battles. So this actually makes it a possibility in some universe that Avalon Hill's HeroQuest and this old world aesthetic of Warhammer could somehow have something of a crossover. That I don't think that would happen. I honestly do not think that it would happen, but it could happen. And for a lot of people, just by virtue of the two companies existing and the two properties being relevant and now being a thing right now, or at least as soon as the Old World releases, people would be able to use these things for one another. I will tell you this much. That's basically the end of the suggestions given in the Discord. But I will tell you this much. I talk a lot about not getting into Warhammer and leaving Warhammer alone and not wanting to spend money on it and all that, blah, blah, blah. I want to buy the Old World when it comes out. I don't know if I'm going to be able to play it, but I will buy it, and I will seek out the factions. I will look for the different factions, because I just read the list of the different factions, and all of the factions, if they are created with that classic style, they will make for awesome proxies for the contemporary HeroQuest, especially if they come on round bases and not slotted bases. Do the thing, Games Workshop. Stop doing slottas. Just to read you really quickly the faction list. They're doing core factions. They're doing legacy factions, and there's probably a lot of information on this. Actually, I do see that they are using slotted bases if the images I'm looking at are contemporary ones. So, darn it. Oh well, that's fine. There's a nice, huge, long article written by Richard Scott Jones about 7 days ago, well, as of the time of this video, on Warhammer the Old World but I do want to take a look at the Old World faction list from Timothy Linward. So we have core factions and we have legacy factions. And the core factions are the ones that are going to get re-releases in terms of armies. And these will be the factions that like come with the game. It's probably just going to be like your standard good guy and bad guy factions that come with the actual game, like always. But you'll be able to go out and purchase the separate armies that are termed core. And then there are legacy armies, and the legacy armies are going to have PDFs that you can print out if you already have the miniatures. I don't know that they're going to make legacy faction army sets for you to purchase. So you'll have access to lists though of specific characters and races and such that you can use with this game. But for core races, they have the Empire of Man. These are factions, not races, I'm sorry. Core factions. The Empire of Man, the Dwarven Mountain Holds, the Kingdom of Bretonia, the Wood Elf Realms, the High Elf Realms, the Orc and Goblin Greenskin Tribes, the Warriors of Chaos, the Beastmen Bray Herds, and the Tomb Kings of Kimry. Now, I know some of you squealed when you heard Chaos Warriors, Beastmen, or Tomb Kings especially. And there's probably some High Elf fans out there, or Bretonian fans. But these guys are all getting new miniatures. They're all getting re-released as part of the Warhammer The Old World franchise. So that sounds so cool. We can have Tomb Kings in our modern day HeroQuest by purchasing Tomb King contemporary armies for our Games Workshop game. Well, maybe. We don't know what the scale and that sort of thing is like. I guess we do know that actually, because I'm pretty sure they're just going to use heroic scale. All the details are out there. So go check it out. Go look up the stuff. If you have the figurines already, the free like PDFs for legacy factions will include Skaven, Dark Elves, Vampire Counts, Daemons of Chaos, Ogre Kingdoms, Lizard Men, Chaos Dwarves. You'll have all of that. And there are two factions who are unknown. We don't know if they're going to be right now in the list of core or legacy, unless that information is already available when you're hearing this. But there's the Grand Cathay and the Frozen Kislev. So, two more factions. And there's a video already out about this stuff as well, which is mainly just some guys, the designers, I'm sure, talking about them. But anyways, I would love to see the Ninja Turtles is probably my favorite idea for a crossover. That's Nickelodeon, so kind of hard to say how possible that would be, or if the companies would ever consider doing anything like that. I know it would be great to have a Ninja Turtles board game, though, even if it were kickstarted, crowdfunded, whatever. I'd be interested in backing that. And I'd be interested in playing HeroQuest with a Turtles skin. I'm a long-time Turtles fan. I see nothing wrong with that crossover in particular, because it's just goofy fun. It's just goofy fun. Anything to get the kids involved. What are you doing to cross over HeroQuest at home? Anything at all? Are you just doing the raw core experience? Are you pretty open to taking other properties and moving them onto the board just in the interest of getting the kids to play HeroQuest? Are you perhaps taking your daughter's Rainbow Dash pony and setting her on the board and giving her stats and saying, yeah, you can play as the pony for sure, or the Cutie Mark Crusaders, or, what have you, She-Ra. I wouldn't mind a classic She-Ra and He-Man game, or at least the involvement of those two properties with my HeroQuest game. I think it'd be very easy to get She-Ra, and I know some people have gotten He-Man in there and Skeletor, so that would be another good one. And I think Jace actually brought that one up as well. So anyways, that'll be it for me for now. Like I said, no new topic right now. I'm going to be working on acquiring an interview, and so I'm not sure if I'll have that ready in time for next Monday's Bwodecast set. If I don't, I'll have something else hopefully worthwhile for you in its place. For now, guys, thank you so much for listening. Let me know what you were doing, what you were up to when this podcast occurred for the day, and I will see you in the next episode. Always feel free to join the Amalgam Archive Discord and weigh in any of the channels. Say hi. I'm usually out and about there and checking things out and chatting with people about various topics, whether it's the new nerd news or a new board game find that I got in, and that's stuff that you can see and know about before it ever is brought to light here on the channel in video form. So, again, till next time, have a great rest of your day, and bye for now.